We are live. Welcome to Conversational Currency, Maryland's top small business talk show. I am your host, Shadidi Laser. Ladies and gentlemen, communication is a superpower, and conversational currency examines the value and importance of social skills for business in a digital era told through the stories, through the lens of today's business and thought leaders. Now, through the story of our guests and current events, we will answer the question: if you are able to say the right words in the right moments to every man or woman in a business setting, how different would your life be? Now, success starts with seizing opportunity, and right now is your chance to grab your digital assets execution plan, which is your step-by-step guide to package your skills and create digital assets to escape the time for money trap. Your next step is to browse mrshadid.com/assets and claim your free plan. Now, in this exclusive conversation, which I consider an honor, not only for myself and my journey, but for my audience who has been along the path and has gone through the struggle of understanding the value of their content. We're going to discuss the art and science of renting, leasing, and licensing your content to corporations from my special guest, the world's foremost expert on selling programs and intellectual property to corporations and businesses, the great, the talent, the honorable Mitch Axelrod. Mitch, how are you this fine day?
I am absolutely terrific, Shadid. It's really great to be with you. I'll have to live up to the hype.
Well, don't worry, Mitch. Don't worry. This is going to be a valuable conversation for my audience. Now, we need a baseline definition, and many definitions exist in terms of what content licensing is. But can you give us, in layman's terms, what your definition of content licensing is?
Well, because I'm a simpleton and I like to make everything complex very simple, I will say you could define it in one word: use. Use. So licensing, people think of it as a legal term, and yes, there are legal uh, caveats that you want to have in place. But the reality is, how you use and give other people the right to use your intellectual property is really all about what licensing really is at its core. Now, we're accustomed to selling our programs, our products, and our packages because that's what we were taught. I took a little different journey, which we'll talk about, but I found it much easier to have a conversation about how somebody could use my intellectual property rather than buy it or whatever they want to do with it. And once I know what they want to do with it, how they want to use it, or how it can be used, then I start thinking in terms of how will I convey that right to use. Sometimes it's licensing, sometimes it's renting, sometimes it's selling, and sometimes it's a combination of all three. So I would say that's as simple as I can convey it.
Okay, now this opens up a wide possibility of options for our content creators who are tuning in that the sale is often the first aspect that they think in terms of, I'm going to transfer my IP or intellectual property to the client, to the agency, institution, or organization. And that is the only form of transaction that exists. But when you start to open the door to licensing, renting, so on and so forth, can you please go into what renting, the world of renting content, what does that mean to Mitch Axelrod?
You know, it's really funny. We rent everything. Everything is rentable. Anything you can buy pretty much now you can rent, right? So when you think about real estate, which intellectual property is real estate. In fact, the most valuable real estate is not the south of France or Beverly Hills or the heart of Manhattan. It's the 6 inches between your ears. Everything that gets manifest starts up here as an idea. And so that gives it really so many different kinds of uses when you think about it. The problem is we've been taught, and not incorrectly, to create product. So it goes from here, essence, into a product form. And then we do the one thing we're required to do, the one thing that the vast majority of people don't like, aren't really good at, aren't skilled at, and would rather like sit in the burning sun all day. And that is sell, right? Now, I've trained 1 million people on sales mastery, service mastery. My brand is called The New Game of Selling and The New Game of Service. And what I realized is I had to change the game because I hated the way I was taught. And realize this, here's the big problem. Let's say you master that art of selling. When you sell your IP, you're playing a zero-sum game, meaning they have to buy it or they don't buy it. There's no middle ground. They can try it, but that's not buying it, right? So early on in this game, I don't like zero-sum games. I always like a third alternative. So here's how I discovered to rent my content. I got off the road. I was a full-time speaker for 8 years in 1996. I got off the road to raise my son, and I lost 80% or more of my income. All right. And because I was out on the road training. And a client calls me up, and this is the gift of listening to your customers. I listen. I think I'm the one skill I have always practiced to listen with my ears, my eyes, my heart, and my soul, and listen for what's not said. Sometimes the most important thing is in the unsaid. But when we're selling, we're so busy talking and pitching and presenting and demonstrating that we don't spend enough time hearing what it is that the customer is looking for and then very smoothly give it to them. So client calls me up. He says, Mitch, how are you doing? I said, I'm great. I'd go out to visit him twice a year. He said, I can't afford you anymore. I said, that's okay. I'm off the road. He says, I have a proposition for you. I said, what's that? He said, you know how you came in and trained my people once and twice a year? Yeah. How about if I do that with your material? He says, every month you send me one module of your training, the video and the audio, and I'll train my people on your stuff. I said, at the time, I said, it's like, you're talking about like Blockbuster, you know, he says, I'd like to rent your content. Oh my God. I said, really? How about $1,000 a month? This was 1996, right? To go to the post office and put one module, a video and an audio. He said, that's great, I'll do it. And by the way, can I do something else? I'm going to give your speakers a gift right now. I like a really big gift. Okay, so when I went out and trained companies, I would always ask them if they would like to bring in their customers for a customer appreciation session. I'm out there anyway. I'm training your people. They loved it. I said, if you pay me 50% more, I'll stick around. Breakfast, I'll come early, dinner, after, I'll do an hour. And I'll tell you what, I will let you record it and give it to the customers. They said, you're crazy. Nobody does that. I said, I'm not so crazy like a fox. You're going to pay me 50% more. All of your customers are going to get my cassette at the time with my phone number and my information. So it's like, you're paying me to market to those people, and I'm going to give you a tremendous customer experience. 30% of them bought it. Okay. Just with a question. Would you like to bring your customers in for customer appreciation? Right. So he says to me, I'd like to do that too, once a month with my customers. I say, great, another $1,000 a month. I got off that phone and I realized, oh my God, everybody rents houses, cars, everything. Why don't I rent my content? I called up 10 of my clients. Within 30 days, I had 10,000 a month of passive income, which was good money back then. It's good money today. And just to go to the post office once a month to put an audio, a video, and a module of my workbook. And I began to develop a rental income on my intellectual real estate. And I realized I didn't discover it, I listened, but I own that concept now, rent your content. So when they don't want to buy it, why not give them the option to rent it, rent a piece of it, rent a module of it, rent a chapter of it, give them an experience of it. And now you're not stuck in a zero-sum game, buy or no buy. You have a third alternative. Hey, why don't you rent it for a couple of months? Try it out, see if you like it. And by the way, if you decide to buy it, I'll do it like real estate. I'll apply some of your rental fee to the purchase price. How's that? So within about 6 months, I had a decent five-figure income coming in from renting what I was already selling. And that's how I came upon that whole element and that whole model. And it's taken me for 25 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you just experienced is a paradigm shift in that selling or the transactional model of intellectual property transferred to a client is a zero-sum game. If they say yes, you have a sale. If they say no, then you have nothing. And so what Mitch is sharing is an option, a way to deliver your value to a client based on a story that occurred in 1996 that has carried on for 25 years. Now, Mitch, there's a portion of my audience that are accomplished course creators. And so they have the courses that exist on the various online platforms. And the question that they have, maybe they have 50 students, maybe they have 100 students enrolled, they have some testimonials. How does this section of my audience transform an existing course, which may live on an online platform, into content that is, let's say, license ready, rentable, and available for the prime time in that way?
Okay, if they've got what you just described, they don't need to create anything more based upon the fact that it has efficacy and application. But if they've got 50 or 100 people already, that's 50 or 100 people that might have a connection to a business, an organization, a nonprofit, an association, a corporation. You know, it's amazing to me that people take for granted today, and that's understandable because when you grow up in a world that's so technologically connected, you can't know what came before, right? I know what came before. And when I started, I only had three methods. I could knock on doors, which I did 5,000 of those and didn't make a sale. And I said, this sucks. I can't do this anymore, right? You could call them on the phone, or you could send them a piece of mail, right? Or fax eventually. Today, you had a hard time reaching the kind of people you wanted to reach who were ideal for you. Today, you can target, micro-target, 1 degree or 2 degrees of separation away from anybody on the planet. The biggest challenge in this game is to shift your mindset. You shift your thinking from a two-dimensional game, buy, no buy, sell, no sell, to a multi-dimensional game. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a 10-chapter book and that's all you have. I wrote a book called The New Game of Business in 2004. I printed 3,000 copies, gave them all away. If I would have sold that book at $10 minus 5 hard cost, I'd make $5 a book times 3,000 or 15,000. And you know how hard it is to sell 3,000 books? Like the minuscule number of people. I had a #1 bestseller for 100 days. All right, straight. The New Game is selling. Most books don't sell 200 copies. All right. I said, I don't want the 15,000 profit. I'm going to give it away. And I'm going to make money on what's in the book, not on the book. So instead of making 15,000, I made 250,000 by giving the book away. Training, speaking, licensing, selling. Okay. Now, you have a course, you have a program, whatever you have. You think of it as a singular thing, one thing. No. You have 10 chapters, you have 10 individual pieces of intellectual property. In fact, I tell all of the people at work, I tell everybody, create everything you create modularly so you can sell 1 or 2 or bundle 1 or 3 and 5 together. And so now you don't think of it as one product, one package, one program. You think it as a bundle of IP, and certain pieces of it could be worth more than the whole thing. I love stories because that's what conveys it, right? So my first big licensing deal was a $500,000 deal with the 12th largest insurance company. Put me on the map, right? So I'm carrying this big workbook, like this thick, audio cassettes on the old style, right? Mm-hmm. Old school. Mm-hmm. So I'm carrying their packaging. I let them package it with their company logo, much more impressive to carry it than mine. Mm-hmm. I walk into an office of a guy I know with a big smile. I'm carrying my baby under my arm, He says, "What's that?" I said, "It's my new workbook. It's just launched nationwide, 4,000 people, mutual." He says, "I'm not buying that." Jersey guy, right? I'm from New Jersey. That's the way. He says, "I'm not buying that." I said, "Come on, it's only $295 with the cassettes, and I'll discount it to $250 a person." He had 50 people. Mm-hmm. "Don't waste your time. I'm not buying it." Okay, where do we go from here? He says, "Open the book table of contents." I open the table of contents. He says, "I want these 5 modules. How much?" Now, I'm a little bit of a smart ass, so I'm saying, I'm going to get this guy to buy the whole workbook. I said, $100 a module, $500 for the 5. Fully expecting him to say, "Well, that's ridiculous. I'll pay $250. I get the whole workbook, the cassettes." He says, "Sold. When do we start?" I said, "What?" I said, "What just happened here?" I said, "Well, explain." He says to me, "Mitch, you wanted to sell it to me your way. I want it my way. My way is I don't need all this other crap. I just need those 5 modules. I'll pay you to come in and train my people. I only need 1 sale each guy at $500, and I'm in the black for the rest of my life. It'll never happen if you give me that big fat workbook. I won't buy it because I'll put it on the shelf. But if you give me these 5 modules, I'm willing to pay a premium, and I'll hire you to train me." And I said, "Thank you, bless you. You just changed my life." In that moment, I recognized that the parts were worth more than the whole. I stopped carrying the workbook, and I only carried the cover and the table of contents. And from that moment on, I sold thousands of modules individually and in bundles where I wouldn't have sold hundreds of workbooks. And I realized everything you create can be broken down. You might have one model in your entire program that could be worth more to somebody than the whole workbook. And that was when I realized, my goodness, I have so much more than one 37 module workbook. I have 37 individual pieces of IP, and are easier to sell one at a time than to try to sell them on a whole workbook. And that changed my life. So all the people that you have who have courses and programs, you're ready. Change your mindset, expand it, use your A ring of your concentric circle, or your relationship capital, which is also IP, by the way, and put out that now you're looking to bring your IP to companies, organizations, break it down into parts, start to position it as a sum of the parts rather than just one whole thing. And it's so much easier. And what I teach people is, when you really learn how to engage like you in conversations, ask questions and listen, your customers will tell you everything you need to know to help them, because they want you to help them. They don't want you to sell them. They want you to help them. And you might have one model inside of one chapter that might be worth 5, 6 figures, maybe 7 figures to a company that needs that one piece of IP and not all the rest of it. So that's what I would advise them to do.
Very, very powerful, game-changing information. Now, when it comes to the mindset piece of this, because you alluded to mindset quite a bit in our conversation, there are brilliant content creators who, let's say, they look at licensing as more or less a black box, and they sometimes have the disconnect that their content is valuable enough to be licensed and rented for high 5 figures, 6 figures, and in some cases, 7 figures. What piece of advice or story that you can share with the audience to help them flip the switch to realize that their content, their intellectual property is valuable?
Well, if anybody, if anybody has people who have purchased it, obviously it's valuable. All right. But there's a couple of things I want to say on this. First is hearkening back to the product sale. What's really, I discovered this a long time ago. When you put something in form, whatever form it is, you have 2 sales to make. You have to sell the IP or the content, and then you have to sell the form it's delivered in. So you sell a book, you deliver the book. It's a course, you deliver the whole course. It's a program, you deliver the whole program, right? What if I don't have time to read a book? What if I don't have the bandwidth to do a course? You're stuck looking for people not only who will like the intellectual property, but they're going to like the form. And if they don't like the form, but they like the property, you lost the potential client. Unless you're willing to go back to essence and disassemble your form, like I did 25 years ago, and I became the only Burger King in a world of McDonald's, right? Everybody else is saying, hey, you take it the way I created. I said, you can have it your way. All right. Hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders don't upset us. That was Burger King. Right. So when you can give it people their way, very often they'll kind of tell you what it's worth. So how do you determine pricing? Your IP and yourself is the hardest challenge everyone has. Don't think you're defective because you're not sure what you're worth. All right. I would say probably, and I know this for a fact, I've trained 1 million people, so I have a pretty good sample. 90% or more of us undercharge or then overcharge. If you survey 100 people in a room, and I've done it many times, how many of you are more prone to overcharge than undercharge? Very few hands go up. All right. I don't ask the other question because the rest of the people are undercharging, right? So we don't really know what we're really worth until we bump. So I started at $500 a half a day in 1989. On 1990, I said, I'm going to double my fee. I went to $1,000. It didn't lose any business. 1991, I went to $2,000. 1990, in other words, nobody's going to give you a raise unless you push the envelope. But how do you know? How do you really know? You know, a book sells for $10 to $30. A course sells for $99 to $4.99. A mastermind sell. Everything has a price range. So if you try to sell a book for $10,000, it's like, what's in that book? The form doesn't match the price. If you sell a mastermind for $10, it's like, you're crazy. So there's a sort of a matching of price and form. So how do you know what you're worth? I found out the easy way. I asked. I'm sitting with a vice president of sales. This is almost 30 years ago. And we're talking about his project, right? And as he's talking, you know, my mind is moving. I'm thinking, this is about 25 grand. It was a good sized project, right? And back then, that was a decent amount of money. That would be a project pricing arrangement. Out of nowhere, he said, so let's talk about money. I don't know why I asked him, but I did ask him. I said, so what have you put aside for this project? He says $100,000. I said, that seems right. And then I just followed it up with, so how much have you allocated for me? He said, oh, I think we could do around 70,000. Is that okay? I sat back and I thought, yeah, I think I can do it for that. I'm thinking it's worth 25. Why? Because I'm thinking what I think I'm worth. He's thinking what the project is worth. He was willing and willing to pay me almost 3 times what I would have asked for. So here's what I tell people. Ask them, what's the project worth? What have you allocated? Not budgeted, allocated. And the big question, how much have you put aside for me? And in that moment, I realized I will never again quote a price until I determine from them what is the value to them so that my price is right in line with the real value. And nobody can tell what the value is but them. They might be worth $1 million to them, that they might be willing to pay $100,000 to get a 10 times return on investment, whereas I might only charge 10 or 20,000 because I think that's what it's worth. Big lesson, all right? And then I learned how to move from project pricing to value pricing. Rather than say what I want to charge, I will take what you think it's worth, all right? And then I started to value price all of my projects. Doesn't always work, but you can always come down. Very hard to go up.
Yes, excellent insight. Now, when it comes to the world of licensing and the variety of intellectual property, the having so many different deals in motion at the same time can save an entrepreneur from a major disaster, health crisis, you name it. And during these times, there's so many different things that are going on in people's lives. If you don't mind sharing, please share some of the health challenges you face and how both licensing and the IP of relationships were able to help you to stay afloat, stay in the game, and ultimately rebound.
Well, March 27th of this year, I woke up in the morning and I felt a little strange. I was getting not dizzy, but I had an airy feeling in my head. I couldn't open up my hand, could not move it, couldn't write. So I called my friend. I said, I think I'm having a stroke. She said, what are you calling me for? I'll call 911. Well, sure enough, I had a stroke. I was healthy as a horse. I know where came out of nowhere. Completely paralyzed on my right side on March 27th of this year. I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk, could not move my arm, and certainly couldn't move my fingers. They took me to the hospital and did an MRI trying to find out what caused it. Well, lo and behold, they find an aneurysm on the other side of my head that was about to burst. And if it would have burst, it would have killed me. So, as it would have it, my stroke of luck, I had a stroke to find out I had a brain tumor, essentially an aneurysm. They had 2 operations within 4 days. So I had a stroke and 2 brain surgeries within 5 days. They removed it. Then I went to a nursing home for 9 weeks for rehab. I had to learn how to talk again. I had to learn how to walk again. And I'm just starting to get movement. I can't write yet and I can't type yet. I can write a little bit. Now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, just when something like that happens, you don't think about work very much. You think about, God, I'm alive. Thank God I'm alive. And I'm not going to have a brain burst. I was literally living with a ticking time bomb in my head. And much of my speech has returned. I can understand me at least. I'm a little slower than I used to be. If you watch some of my videos before March, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But that's okay. I can speak. It didn't affect my brain. I still have memory and I can recall. So I feel incredibly blessed that I'm alive. I'm grateful. Every day I get up, put my feet on the ground, and I realize, my God, I have a second chance. So I feel like I'm really going to make the most of it. And it was ironic, to happen during this time when everybody else was home. And what it dawned on me was intellectual property, not just the property itself, but knowing the game of intellectual property is intellectual property. A skill you have is intellectual property. Relationship capital is intellectual property. Fortunately, I built, platinum relationships that I could pick phone, call anybody I've done business with for the past 30 years. They would take my call. They may not be able to do business with me, but they would do what they can to help. And what it really taught me, because all of us who are in the education and training and development business, we're all supportive. We're supporters. I had to be supportable. And the biggest lesson I took away from this, I had to depend on my doctors, my nurses, my therapists, the nurse assistants, everybody. And I learned how to lean on them. And that was different for me. I'm the person pretty much, who gets leaned on. And it was a good thing. It's a very healthy thing, because when your scales are too much one way, like you're supportive, you've got to become supportable. And so one of the great things about IP is it's evergreen. So I was able to reach out to clients. I was able to pick up as soon as I got out of the rehab, get some business, partner with Iman, who was a friend before. We hadn't done business. And he said, come on, Mitch, I know what you can do. I have an audience. So I took the relationship capital. I took my social capital. I have an acronym. I'll share it with your audience because it's very valuable. When you can't get money, when you can't get cash, there's 5 things you can look for non-cash assets. And the acronym is PRESS, PRESS. All right. Like if you play craps or dice in a gambling and you win, you say, take my bet off or press my bet, right? You press the bet, that means you let it ride. P is for psychological or psychic. How strong are you? I had to be incredibly mentally strong to get through the last 9 months, as most of us have. We've all had different variations of what I went through by being locked up and locked down. R, relationship capital. To me, it's the most valuable non-cash asset I have. that I could call anybody. They would listen to me. They'd be there for me. Why? Because I built that over years and decades. E, emotional capital. All right. When you're down, when you're not feeling good, you got to reach out to people. It's hard to get out of emotional distress by yourself. S, social capital. Today, we all have social capital. We don't take advantage of it because it's social, but now social is blending with business. And you're realizing the social world is a great world to reach out to people. And then lastly is S for spiritual capital. Okay. And spiritual capital, whatever you define it as, you could define it as, essence, whatever it is for you. It's that one thing, that one voice only you can hear, comes from within, intuition. Okay. And I find, having trained a lot of people and getting to know them, that many of us don't have faith in ourselves. We look to outside things. We have faith in this and that, and we use our product almost to substitute for us. I did it for years. I led with my product. I figured, you're buying my product, you're not buying me. And nothing could be further from the truth. So you really sort of have to get centered, really not only believe, but know you have value. Let other people establish your value if you're not sure what it is. If they offer you more than you would have charged, take it. If they offer you less, say, oh, that's a good offer. I would have charged this. You offer this. Let's find a way to make up the difference. All right. So there's lots of things you can learn in this business to do if you would just get out of your head, get out of your selling position, and really get into talking to people about what they want. And there's no better time to reach out to customers, to re-engage and just have a conversation. What are you going through? How can I help? There's one question I suggest you ask every customer. Two. Why did you buy from me? Which is gold. And then, how can I serve you better now and in the future? And just those two questions will lead to incredible conversations and unearth all kinds of possibilities that you wouldn't have had if you're in a selling mode. It's a different context. You heard me talk about content is king, but context is the kingdom. And if we shift our thinking from our content to creating a context, an environment where we're of service to love and serve people, you don't need technique. You don't need closing skills. You just need human communication.
Now, you mentioned, let's say, relationship capital. And for many within my audience, they have talent. They are accomplished, but in some way, shape, or form, they did not learn the lesson that your relationships dictate how far you'll go or connect your way to the top. And so they're playing catch up from a relationship building standpoint. And so their first question, their first, let's say, problem they run into is, how do I find leads? And when the answer is, well, you need to build relationships, and that, as you mentioned, it often comes from referrals when we talk about licensing deals. Can you please share how relationships factor into both finding licensing deals, maintaining licensing deals, and ultimately closing licensing deals?
Well, it extends to all deals, everything. And I see a lot of people give lip service to relationships, but they don't invest the time. People know the buyer today is smarter, has more choice, really is in the driver's seat in most cases, because there's nowhere except for maybe like Amazon. There's nobody that has one vendor in what we do. All right. So you've got to start from where you are. I was never a great marketer, I had to learn marketing. I didn't like it. To me, it always felt hyped. I'd much rather just build a genuine relationship. But I realized there's great advantage to be able to reach larger numbers of people with a message, and then get them to respond. So I would say there's two things I'll say. Number one is look at whatever relationships you do have. And I'm going to give you my rejection proof networking. All right. This, this is great. And three things you have to learn: what you do, why you do it, and who you're looking for. You may know what you do. You may be able to say clearly. You may know why you do it. The biggest pothole I see in like the elevator pitch is it doesn't tell you who you're looking for. So am I supposed to figure out by what you do who I can recommend? No, you've got to get very clear who are you best suited to serve or would love to serve best. All right. Because who you're best suited to serve is probably the shortest distance to an audience of those kind of people. So once you get clear about what you do, why you do it, who you're looking for, I call it rejection proof networking. You can't get rejected. Now pick 10 or 20 of your closest relationships. I tell people to make 3 lists. List number 1, everybody who loves you, who will do whatever they want just because they love you, right? List number 2, people you've worked with, clients, customers who really love you, like you, who would help you. The third list is either companies or industry by name that you would like to penetrate, organizations, businesses. If you don't have a company name, pick an industry. I went right back into the industry I came out of because I understood their language. Some of us are going after industries that we know nothing about. All right. I feel that people make things too complicated and too difficult. So find your current relationships, say, here's what I do, here's why I do it, here's who I'm looking for, who do you know, where can I go? Simple. You get that conversation going with 10 or 20 people who know you, like you, want to help you. All right. Then you move out to, if you need to, what I call your B ring, like a target, archery. If you get it dead bullseye, you go right up to it and go doink. Sometimes you don't hit the center, you hit an outer ring. Okay, great. That's how I did it, right? Because I didn't like marketing. I did a little public relations. I did some advertising, but my best deals came through relationships, Now, if you're going to do marketing, create a 1-page, create a paper, a brief. I've over the years have created 1, 2-page and 3-page briefs, confidential reports, a short description of some of the problems they're having. Like I just circulated a finding that I discovered by reading that 65% of B2B marketers don't want your content. What do they want instead? That's a pretty provocative title, right? I had probably 500 people read this report. The answer, by the way, empathy. How much empathy are you showing? How much empathy and compassion are you demonstrating? Or are you just kind of launching into your pitch, your presentation? You would never come up with that. I wouldn't. I kind of know because I work with companies. But if you thought about it, you wouldn't think, well, what's the number one thing that B2B buyers want? Well, they want good content. They want results. They want to look good. They want their agenda fulfilled, all those things, right? You would think empathy. So you could, again, hook on to something that's in the marketplace that gives you third party credibility. So it's not you saying it. So the 4 words that got me a ton of business, want me to share those 4 words?
Yes, sir.
My clients tell me. Whenever anybody said, why should I work with you? Or why should I do business with you? I would just shrug my shoulders, instead say, well, here's what my clients tell me. Boom, 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 boom. See, if I said the same thing, it wouldn't have any weight. They'd expect me to say that. Like if I said, I'm a business in the world that helping you license, rent, and sell your intellectual property, well, that's pretty arrogant, right? I would never say that. Maybe it might be true, might not be true. I'm good at what I do. I would never say that. In fact, I'll tell you how I got my USA, unique service advantage, by asking a corporate VP, why do you buy from me? Why'd you hire me? You have like a dozen trainers. You have consultants in and out of here. He said, Mitch, you were the only person I've ever met who talked about marketing, sales, and service as one holistic process rather than three separate departments on different floors with walls between them. And now we are much better at attracting, converting, and keeping customers. I said, can I steal that? They said, of course. So when somebody would ask me, what do you do? I would say, my clients tell me I'm really good helping them attract, convert, and keep more customers. Which of those would you like to do better? I qualified people with a comment and a question, and that was it. If they didn't want to attract, convert, or keep more customers, who would you know who would like to attract, convert, and keep more customers? But it took a couple of years and many questions of why did you buy from me for that guy to say, that's my USA, my unique service advantage. Why? How do I know that? My clients tell me. What are your clients telling you? Are you even asking them? Why did they buy your course? Why did they purchase your package, your product? Why did they read your book? I don't know anybody who sold one chapter of their book for 25 grand. I did. I called the client up. I told you I gave out my books, right? And I followed it up with a phone call. Guy said to me, Mitch, we love your book. He had $25,000 to invest. I said, what can I do for you? He said, well, we really loved your book, but we're limited on budget. I said, well, if I sold you the book at cost, $5 would have cost me, I'd still only be able to give 5,000 of your people the book. And I wouldn't make, maybe $1. I said, what did you like most about the book? He says, you're not going to believe this. We got rave reviews on chapter 8. Chapter 8 was on success abilities, life and business skills. I said, what if I gave everybody in the company chapter 8 instead of the whole book? Would that work for you? He says, how can you do that? How do you break a book up? I own the book. It's in a Word doc. All I have to do is put that chapter in a PDF. You can even write a cover to it, and he said, you'll do that? I said, sure, why not? I sold a PDF for 25 grand because I asked him, what did you like most about the book? And I went deep to see if he would rather have 5,000 books and pass them around, or give everybody the opportunity to read chapter 8 and have continued conversation. I've told that story 100 times more. I've yet to see somebody raise their hand and say, I sold a chapter in my book. You could do that. I'm known for a phrase, throw the box away. In fact, my son's here. We spent half the weekend throwing boxes away, literal. But in this case, it's the box you put yourself in your mind. No boxes, no borders, no boundaries. And when you learn to have that kind of conversation, everything will change for you.
Very powerful mindset shift here. Now, you're packaging your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences into a 3-day experience that you call the ultimate licensing formula. Now, this will be right in the time of the new year. So can you please give us more details on what to expect for this experience?
Well, you were there for the first one we did.
Oh, yes.
You can attest to what you got out of it. But basically, what we're going to do is spend 3 days and create a framework about how to rent or sell or license your intellectual property to companies, organizations, associations, and corporations. Now, most people, the immediate response I get 8 out of 10 times, oh, I don't know anybody who works in a corporation. It's like, you're done before you even started. All right, first of all, it's not true. And second of all, I'm not talking about Fortune 100, 500. There are 20 million businesses in this country that are not, giant corporations. Everything from local to regional, and the size of the company is not necessarily the deciding factor, because we're going to show you that not only is your intellectual property user capital, it's marketing currency. I did a talk for SANG, Speakers and Authors Networking Group, in 2010. And I predicted something that came true. I said within a couple of years, companies were not spending any money at that time on content marketing. I said within 5 years, 80% of the marketing will be content marketing. You have content. Did you ever think your content could be marketing currency? That it could benefit a customer's customer, a customer's vendor, supplier, could be used to open up new markets, to reactivate past customers who are dormant, to bundle together as a bonus to a core offer? There's so many ways you can reposition your intellectual property when you go back to essence from form. So we're going to show you 3 ways to sell and license your content, 3 different plays, I call it. How to identify your IP assets and put them into like categories. I'm going to share that money talk, which is how do you go from time and project pricing to value and experience pricing. Nobody talks about experience pricing but me. I'm going to show you at least how you can jump to value pricing and maybe add 50% to 100% to your income just by asking questions. Then I'm going to do a whole session on the secrets to catch the big fish. How to prepare, how to package, how to position, how to propose. And then we're going to kind of end it up with a very simple 6-figure IP game plan with as little as 4 clients. If you're looking at retirement, if you're looking at adding passive income, if you're looking to get out of the, one sale at a time and make 50 or 100 or 500 opportunities with one conversation, then this weekend will be absolutely a total game changer. And the irony is, based on my relationship with Iman, you can join for free and you could just watch it, no charge, or you could upgrade for $1 and be in the room. I think we also have one more upgrade where you get the recordings and a bunch of bonuses. So we're going to show you how to triangulate so you can find third parties to fund your deal. I'm going to show you how I got my products, packages, and programs paid for in advance before I created them, and then already created them with a client to buy it, and a whole lot more. So that's kind of the overview of what we're going to cover.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate licensing formula is your opportunity to go behind the scenes and go in depth on your intellectual property and identify your sellable content and create those assets that will allow you to license, rent your content into deals and plays that will benefit you today and tomorrow. You'll learn how to price your programs and your content to adjust to different types of organizations. You'll be able to have the confidence and the blueprint to approach and attract businesses and corporations to invest in your programs. You will learn Mitch's triangulation method to maximize your impact and profits. And you have the opportunity to meet other professionals from around the world who will be on the path of licensing. They can be content buyers, chief information officers who have relationships within various companies to help you skip the line and use relationships to land deals faster. This opportunity takes place on January 8th through 10th, 3-day event. And your next step to claim your free ticket, which has a VIP upgrade, there's 2 tiers of VIP upgrade. So if you want to be in a virtual room and interact and take place with various breakout sessions and training, then there's a $1 upgrade. And if you want the full scope, which means your 6-figure plan, your IP assets plan, then you can upgrade for $47. But to get in the room and watch via live streaming, the ticket is free. And your next step is to go to bit.ly/licensing formula 2020. And if you go and take that next step, you will receive my partnerships profits formula live training, which goes into 15 modules on how to build relationships and build a 6-7-figure network to accompany the ultimate licensing formula. So this is your next step to take place in the training, kick off your 2021 with understanding intellectual property and learning from the man himself, the one person that when he speaks, I listen. My only thing that I can say about this conversation is that in hosting the conversation, I was unable to take notes because there was a gold mine of information that was shared that will benefit you as you begin to understand the value of your content. bit.ly/licensing formula 2020. You click the link, you sign up for the training, you receive partnerships, profits formula, which is your step-by-step guide to build a 6-7-figure partnership network. And any closing words, Mitch?
Yeah, I always have closing words. This skill, all right. I know that everybody that I've met who has created intellectual property, they feel very strongly they can make a difference and have a bigger impact. And if you really want to have a bigger impact, to be able to, even if you do one deal a year, just think about it. If you do one 5-figure deal a year for the next 5 years, just one, and it's worth a couple of $1,000s a month, you talk about, building a residual income. And the beautiful part about this is many of us get frustrated because our work isn't out there the way we want it to be. I was not skilled to sell one person at a time. It was just too much. I'm better to sell one person who could put me in front of 20, 50, 100. I've trained 5,000 people in a room at once. All right. The feeling you get when you know you can scale, not necessarily your business or even your income, but the feeling that you get that you know that you can reach and impact 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, 1,000 times the number of people that you're currently impacting and be rewarded, whatever you're rewarded. You don't even have to make maximum money. I know, because I am a creator, that a big thing that drives me is I want to help people. I want people to be improved. And I found having this skill and knowing how to make deals will carry you for years, decades, because even when you can't do a deal with your own product or service, You can find third parties, and having that knowledge, there are so many content creators who have no idea what to do. You could build an income just on your knowledge of doing deals and take 10, 20, 30% of the deal instead of just referring somebody and getting nothing. So I can't encourage people enough. It's time. Yeah, time is money, but I can't think of 3 days that you will value more. And I'll certainly give you 100% of what I got. So I would welcome you. I would love for you to join us. And Shadid, thank you very much for this tremendous conversation.
Thank you, Mitch. Now, on behalf of Mitch Axelrod, I'm Shadidi Laser. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to tune in with us on Conversational Currency. And for this, we appreciate you. Tune in to our next episode. Thank you for tuning in.